guys. Hey, I just wanted to just pop in here and just show you guys what I'm doing today. I am making hot rolls for Easter, and I made these for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. They were wonderful. I posted the video. It's an Oh Sweet Basil recipe. The link is there. Very simple ingredients in it. They're the best rolls you're ever gonna have. So if you have time to throw these together today, they're super simple, no kneading, very easy. Go ahead and do it. If you don't know me, did I say my name? I'm Barb Gilmore, and I'm just a regular, not fancy cook. So anyway, I love baking cookies. I love baking pastries and all kinds of treats, and it all happens in this just regular little kitchen with mostly regular equipment, except for Betsy Bosch over there. She's my big girl. But other than that, everything I have is just your basic kitchen equipment. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing good, and make these rolls up, show them to me. They are delicious. You will not regret it. They freeze well. The ones I had for Christmas, I made at Thanksgiving. So you can freeze them already, and I'll show you guys when I roll them up. That's what I do. I freeze them and then I take out what we need. So anyway, they're delicious. See ya. Okay guys, make sure you follow the recipe. I've actually doubled the recipe because I'm actually sharing these with my son and some of my friends, and because of the social distancing and you know, we can't have a big family gathering, so I'm doing to-go meals for one of my friends and for my son and his friends. So anyway, and then our good friends across the street, I'm giving them rolls too. So the single batch makes a ton, but the double batch makes a ton more, and I like to have a lot. So anyway, that's why I've doubled it. So you're gonna start out with scalding your milk, and I think the recipe calls for, it's hot, 3 cups of milk, and I've doubled it to 6. So just use whatever whatever recipe, however much you want. Oh my gosh, I sound so silly. Anyway, so then you're gonna put your butter sticks in here, and I ended up putting a cup and a half of butter in there for doubling this recipe, and I let that melt, and then you're going to add your sugar, which I've doubled as well. Make sure if you're doubling the recipe, y'all, that you do the math and write it out, because let me tell you, I don't know if you guys have ever made that mistake of doubling everything but one thing and realizing it afterwards. That's not a good mistake to make. So anyway, I put my sugar in here, and then this recipe calls for potato. I think it calls for dehydrated potato. I use potato flakes, and if you have never made bread with potato flakes in it, oh my goodness, it does something to the yeast. It interacts with the yeast. It causes it to like rise more, and they're nice, fluffy, light rolls. It's delicious. So these are the potato flakes that I measured out. Those are going to go in there as well. And then I'm going to add the salt, and these are just like, I don't know, Hungry Man and Hungry Jack or something. Hungry Man? I don't know. Instant potatoes. You can use whatever brand or store brand or whatever that you want. Mix that in there, and then it has a lot of salt in it, y'all. It calls for, the regular recipe calls for, oh, how much salt is in it? I don't know. I've already measured it. Anyway, look at the recipe and see what it calls for, but it is a lot of salt, and you'll go, oh my gosh, that's too much salt. I can't use that much salt. That must be a typo. It is not. Use all of the salt, okay, which I have done here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let this cool to lukewarm, and then we're going to go ahead and finish the recipe. This is a no knead recipe, so you're not going to be kneading this dough at this point. I don't think you really need it later on whenever we roll it out, but I could be lying to y'all, but it's super simple if you do. We'll find that out momentarily. Anyhow, so I am just gonna let this cool off to lukewarm, and then I'll be back to see you guys. Okay, we're back. So this is cooled to lukewarm, and I was trying to rush this along, so I ended up just setting this down into a bowl of cold water, and I kept putting cold water in the bowl to get it to cool off. So that's an option for you if you want to get it to cool off faster. So the next thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna mix in the eggs, and it calls for, sorry guys, it calls for 4 eggs. Of course, I'm doubling this recipe, so I have 8 eggs in here. I've already cracked them. You're gonna just mix these eggs right in here, just like this, and break them. Come on, egg. that. Oh gosh, we might overflow. I didn't think about that. Uh-oh. I doubled it last time and I thought I put it in this pan, but maybe I didn't. Okay, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hold tight, guys. We could be in for a mess. And I keep seeing these little, like, kind of brown pieces of stuff floating around in here. If you guys are seeing that, what that is potato skins from the mashed potato flakes. So anyway, that freaked me out the first time. I was like, oh, what's in there? It's potato skins. So anyway, this is barely gonna work, but we'll see if we can make it work. So once we get these eggs mixed in here, the next thing we're gonna do is we're going to put the yeast in, and it calls for quick rising yeast or fast rising yeast, and if you don't have that, then use double the amount that it calls for, but it notes that in the recipe notes. So just look at what you have and then go from there. So this is not ideal. You obviously will want to have the appropriate sized pan for your for your mixture. I am just a country cook, guys. That's all I am. Nothing fancy. So anyway, I love, one of the things that I love to get is items from my kitchen from people as gifts. I love that. One of my dear friends sent me this Calphalon, am I saying that right? Pot. It has a double boiler that goes in it too. And then another one of my dear friends gave me this whisk set from Williams-Sonoma. And so one reason that I love getting things from my kitchen is because then I actually use them, and every single time I pull out that item to use it, I think of the person who got that for me. So anyway, that's just, I don't know if you guys are like that too, but I love stuff like that. So that is looking pretty good. Get that mixed up, and then we're going to put the yeast in. And I thought it was kind of weird that the yeast went in here, but it worked last time, so that's what we're doing. So I've got all of my yeast already measured out into this little cupcake liner, and I'm gonna pour that in there, and we're barely having enough room. Obviously the flour is not going in here. We're gonna pour this mixture into the flour mixture. So anyway, this is my great big Tupperware bowl. I use this for everything. I actually need to get another lid for it because I broke the lid, but anyway, it is humongous. So I've doubled the recipe for this, and that's why I need a big one. Oh Sweet Basil said for this recipe that she normally uses 7 cups of flour, and she said, but sometimes she only uses 6 to 6.5, and I was like, well, I don't know. So I'm gonna start out with 6 cups, which that's actually double that. That's 12 cups in there, and then I have the extra flour in here, and we'll see what it looks like and if I need it, and especially since I dumped out a big slosh of the stuff, I might not need that extra flour. So then what you do is you take that mixture and you're going to dump it into your bowl right on top of the flour, which I thought this was the weirdest thing in the world, but that's what you do. You dump all of that in just like that, and then you're going to stir this up. So this is not going to look like your normal bread dough. This actually, let's see if I can get that in there a little bit better. This will look kind of like a muffin batter, I guess, something like that. So let's mix this up and see what it looks like. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some saran wrap over it, and we're gonna let it rise. Now, if you, say for instance, I was just making this for my family and I wasn't making a lot of extras, and I was just gonna make this for Sunday, I would go ahead and put this in the refrigerator. In her recipe, it says you can mix it up and just let it stay in the refrigerator overnight. But if you don't have that time to just let it rise, like I think it says like an hour or something. But I'm gonna go ahead and let it rise the hour. I'm not gonna let it stay in the fridge, because what I like to do is I like to make them up, and I actually roll them up to look like crescent rolls. And then I like to freeze them on a pan, setting out in a single layer, and then I just put them in a Ziploc bag, and that way I can pull out whichever, ones that I want. So one thing that I can see with this Costco flour that I should have done, this Costco brand bulk flour, is I should have sifted it. So if you guys have that same giant bag of flour, sift it. I don't normally sift my flour because I don't have to, but I can see a bunch of big lumps in this. So I'm gonna work those lumps out by just stirring this probably a little bit more than I should. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a piece of saran wrap and just cover the top, and I'm gonna set it over by my oven and just let it rise. Depending on your kitchen temperature, that will, you know, help with your rise. And if it's a cooler day or your kitchen is cold, sometimes what I do is I'll just put my oven like on 100 degrees or 150 degrees, like the lowest that it goes, maybe 150, and just set it by the oven. That way it gets just a little bit of the heat from that to help it rise. So anyway, that's a thought too. And I think that I'm gonna add just a touch more flour. But do I want to sift it? I don't want to sift it. Let's see. I'm going to add just a touch more flour, but I'm going to just sift it through this mesh right here. I think it is just a little bit more wet than it was the last time that I did it. So anyway, I should have sifted this flour. Oh yeah, look at all those little things in it. So if you guys have any of the off-brand or store-brand flours that you're using, because that's all you can get right now, then some people say pro tip. Let's say non-pro tip. Non-pro tip is to sift it. So anyway, there we go. And then I'm going to mix this in. I totally should have sifted. And as I was pouring the flour and measuring it out into the bowl, I was like, you know, it looks a little lumpy. Maybe I should sift it. And then I was like, oh no, it'll be fine. I should have sifted it, but it'll still be fine. So I'm gonna stir this up. I'm gonna put cellophane over it, and then after it has risen, I'll be back and show you guys how to roll these out. They're a lot of fun. Okay, and when I put saran wrap in here, I put the saran wrap down so it touches the top of the dough, and then I just kind of leave it loose. So there's some, it has the ability to lift up. The saran wrap will lift up as the dough lifts up, okay? So if you put the saran wrap down too tight, then it'll keep the dough from rising. So you wanna make sure you give it the freedom to rise. But I like to kind of set it on top of the dough so it doesn't get this kind of dry skim on the top of it. Hey y'all, okay, so I got super distracted, and this is what happens when I have like 5 projects going on at once. I'm baking cookies, I'm baking brownie brittle, I'm like getting stuff ready for my family for Easter, and so I had so much going on, I got distracted. Plus my kitchen's super warm right now with the oven on, so then it really rose up. So you should let this rise an hour, not 2 or so like I just did. It shouldn't be this high, but it's okay. It'll be all right. You're gonna pull this off, okay? And we're just gonna trash that. It's gonna go in the trash. There we go, and that is dough. Now, this dough is, remember the recipe's doubled. So the recipe says to split your dough into 2 parts. I'm actually gonna split this dough into 4 parts. And I'm just gonna take this silicone spatula and just punch it down with that. And then once I get this punched down, I'm gonna do my best to break it up into approximately 4 parts. And let's see what we end up doing here. You know what, I can put it on, hold on. Put it on some plates. Okay, I'm just gonna use a couple plates. I'm gonna split it in 2 first, and then from that, I'll split it into 4, okay? And again, this is the recipe for the crescent rolls, for the really light and fluffy dinner rolls. Okay, hold tight. So I forgot how gooey this dough is. I'm gonna put a glove on. All right, so we're gonna go in half here. Go. And I almost feel like I could add a little bit more flour to that. Okay. Tight. I'm just splitting this dough in 2. Hopefully I'll speed this up, so if I can figure out how to do it. I'm not a video editor. I haven't learned that technique yet. So maybe I'll learn it with this. We'll see. Okay, there's that. nor am I truly a professional baker, so this could be really scary. All right, so I'm gonna take some flour, and I've got this little shaker thing that I use when I'm rolling stuff out. Let's see if I can get it open one-handed. There we go. And I'm just gonna flour my surface, and you're gonna probably need some generous amount of flour. Okay. Like that. And then I'm gonna take this piece. And it's actually a lot. Okay. This could end up being a hot mess, and you guys may never see this video. Okay, so hold tight. I got a little bit too much there. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna put a little bit of flour in this because I feel like it is just a touch gooey. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of flour. Just like this. And I do have clean hands, guys. I just washed my hands. So I'm gonna go ahead and just take that glove off. A bit more flour. And then what I'm gonna do with this is I'm going to press it into a circle. My friends and family that I'm giving this to, if these don't turn out like Christmas, I apologize. All right, so I'm gonna pat this out into a circle. And guys, when you see a little brown stuff in there, that's either gonna be yeast or potato skin. I think that's potato skin. So the potatoes have some potatoes, the potato flakes from the dough have some skins in them. You just, another thing you can do, y'all, if you're not used to working with dough and you're afraid it's gonna stick, is to do all of your rolling out on a piece of like saran wrap, and then you don't have to worry about it actually sticking to that, you know, getting the consistency of the flour down and stuff. Okay, so there we go. That's gonna be about big enough. And then I'm gonna take this butter, and this is room temperature unsalted butter. And I'm gonna spread butter on this. And actually, you know what, I've separated it out on a plate from the big bowl. And so I'm gonna go with a smaller portion this time because I think that'll be easier for you guys to handle. Now, this dough is super wet, and so it needs some flour in it, or see how sticky it is, or it's really hard to handle. And I think that when I mixed it, I could have put a tad bit more flour in it, but it's okay. So just put you some flour down on there, and then you're just gonna kind of knead the flour into it, and just, you know, kind of roll it around in the flour and just kind of knead it around like that, just so then you can handle it. You don't want to put way too much flour in it, but you want it to be just right, okay? So it's starting to get sticky again, so I'm gonna add some more, and that's really a lot, but it'll be okay. Make sure you get some underneath. If you're worried about it sticking, do this on some saran wrap. Okay, so now I'm just gonna press this out into a circle. And you can use your rolling pin if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. You can kind of pick it up and stretch it a little bit, but just be careful because you'll get holes in it. Okay, and then once you get it kind of out into the shape that you want it, and I try to do it in a circle because I'm cutting wedges. Sometimes it doesn't always work out perfectly, but that's okay. And then I just take my butter and spread the butter on. And sometimes you have to get your fingers in there to really kind of get it spread in there. Make sure it's really good room temperature butter. So just try not to get the edges so much because you're gonna put the top piece of dough on and you want it to have some place to stick, and with the butter it won't stick. So just put just some butter on there, and then, there we go. I'm gonna take the second piece, which I have over here, and I'd already mostly flattened this one out. And I'm gonna put that one on top. Whoops, there we go. And then you're gonna stick these two pieces together. And then if you wanna, once you kind of pinch the edges a little bit, because you don't wanna squeeze that butter out of there, sometimes it'll kind of like shrink back in. And if you wanna just take it and just lightly straighten it back out, pull it back out a little bit, that's totally fine. Just be careful that you don't tear the top layer, because then you'll have your butter coming out. So usually I just kind of put it back in place like this. There we go. And then I take my big pizza cutter and then cut my wedges, and just like that. And I kind of make them on the smaller side. I think if you make a smaller circle too, they're easier to roll up. You don't have as long of a tail there. So I think about this size is really good, which is about a 10-inch circle. I think that works out really well. There we go. And then guys, if you were gonna directly bake these, say you wanted to bake them up tonight, what you're gonna do is once you shape them, and there's a bunch of different shapes you can do. You can do the crescent roll one, you can do knots, you can do little like pinwheels, just cut it in strips and do pinwheels. So there's a bunch of different shapes you can do. But if you wanted to bake them up tonight, you would put them on the pan, and then you would put them to rise again until they're almost double in size, and then you would bake them. And the instructions and the recipe will tell you how long and at what temperature. I'm not baking mine tonight, I'm actually freezing them. So these are going on a cookie sheet on a single layer, and I'm gonna freeze them, and then once they're good and frozen, then I'll pick them up and put them in a big Ziploc bag. And then when I'm ready to bake them, I'm gonna bake them on Sunday morning. So tomorrow night, I'll pull them out of the freezer and put them on a single layer on a baking sheet and just let them sit out in the fridge. And then I'll put them out to rise in Sunday morning and then bake them. So I really wouldn't have to freeze them. It's just easier for me for space-wise to not keep them in a single layer in a pan. So that's why I'm freezing them, just to kind of give myself another day of not having to mill around the pans in the fridge, you know. So anyway, but that is it. And if you guys bake these, let me know. I want to see pictures. Happy Easter.